Jinx got buffed extremely hard due to the new Season 12 changes. The reworked Lethal Tempo keystone is just perfect for her, and in this Jinx guide you get everything you need to know in less than 5 minutes. Jinx is one of the best teamfighting AD carries in the game. Her long-ranged auto attacks open up a lot of attacking angles for you, and her reset mechanic makes finishing off multiple low-health enemies super easy. She is therefore best paired with supports who can on the one hand protect you during lane phase, and who on the other hand assist you in teamfights with buffs and shielding effects. Renata, Janna and Lulu all make for excellent partners, just to name a few. Additionally, Jinx isn't merely a godlike teamfighter, she is also very good at capitalizing after winning a teamfight since she can take objectives super quickly. Especially when the fight happens close to an enemy tower or close to Dragon or Baron, you can use your passive attack speed to do it even faster. However, the much more impactful aspect of Jinx's passive is the enormous amount of movement speed she gets after a takedown. This means that just one kill on an enemy frontline champion is enough to carry, since you then can run at the opposing backline champions, giving them no chance to escape. Obviously, frontline champions are quite tanky and also potentially dangerous to you as an immobile AD carry, so taking them down is easier said than done. But this is where Jinx's Q comes into play. AD carries are quite good at taking down tanks to begin with, and with Jinx's massive attack speed boost in minigun form, tank slaying items work even better for you. If the enemy is a threat, however, and getting close to them would be risky, you can also just safely shoot them down in rocket launcher form. Once Q is maxed out and you unlock your rocket launcher's maximum range, tanks or bruisers will never even have the chance to get on top of you to apply their crowd control. Jinx, despite being immobile, is deceptively safe in teamfights due to the massive range increase on a rocket launcher. Your W also allows you to contribute to skirmishes from a safe distance, as its range is even bigger than your rocket launcher, and because the slow can set up plays for your allies. Use this when even your long-ranged auto attacks are not long enough, but when you can just right-click them, don't waste time casting your W. Your Flame Chompers are also highly useful, as you can cast them to create a wall between yourself and your opponent, or to block an enemy's escape route. They are a very strong zoning tool, and using them correctly is crucial since you have to compensate for your lack of mobility. Jinx's ultimate is a strong finisher to execute fleeing low-health enemies, and it is also surprisingly easy to connect due to its massive hitbox. It should go without saying though that you only use this spell once the enemy is out of your auto-attack range, since your ultimate's damage output scales with the distance it travels. As you can see, Jinx mainly revolves around kiting with your Q and your passive, dealing huge damage with auto-attacks. The longer the fight takes, the happier Jinx will be, so your optimal rune page is Lethal Tempo, Presence of Mind, Legend Bloodline and Coup de Grace, with Magical Footwear and Biscuit Delivery secondary. As mentioned before, Lethal Tempo and Jinx have perfect synergy. You can safely stack your keystone with long-ranged Q, unlocking Lethal Tempo's bonus range to stay even safer, or switch back to minigun form at max tempo stacks to shred everyone to pieces with uncapped attack speed. And once you trigger your passive, the combined range and movement speed gives you enough target access to easily maintain your Lethal Tempo stacks. Presence of Mind and Biscuits are there to make sure you will always have enough mana to stay in rocket launcher form, so you can consistently contribute to fights and still have the protection from your defensive spells. Legend Bloodline by itself is still a good source of healing, so in many games you will get away without buying additional lifesteal items. Coup de Grace is always nice to have in early skirmishes, but against particularly tanky teams, Cut Down is a viable alternative. Magical Footwear is probably my favorite AD carry rune in the game, since AD carries scale extremely hard with items, and this rune effectively reads you get your next item 300 gold earlier and are free to click the subscribe button. Speaking of items, Jinx does build like a standard AD carry, but there are still some decisions you need to make. For your Mythic, you have to decide whether you need more tank slaying potential, or whether you want to compensate for your lack of mobility. Both Kraken Slayer and Gale Force work very well in most matchups, and it ultimately boils down to what you are more comfortable with. I personally go for Kraken Slayer most of the time, but again, other people prefer Gale Force, and against Assassins it is probably also objectively better than Kraken Slayer. After upgrading your boots as soon as you get them, you always buy a Zeal item. Here, Phantom Dancer is by far the most consistent and reliable. Yes, the AoE effect from Hurricane might be a tempting combo with your rocket launcher, but the raw damage and amplified kiting you get from Phantom Dancer is even more synergistic. Infinity Edge is a no-brainer on an auto-attack based marksman, and Lord Doms afterwards will always be optimal in terms of damage output. If you bought Kraken Slayer though, your damage is good enough to justify delaying Lord Doms in order to buy your Bloodthirster slightly earlier. If you bought Gale Force, however, it is better to delay the safety from Bloodthirster and prioritize the damage from Lord Doms, since your mythic item already takes care of that. Now, all of this might sound a little abstract, so if you want to see a more in-depth Jinx guide with real in-game examples, just click the link on your screen right there.